Hi, everyone, and welcome to Fashion Decipher. My name is Sean Williams, and today we are adding a new designer to our designer thread. You may or you may not know him. His name is Edmond Newton. He has appeared on so many fashion reality shows such as Project Runway, Fashion Star, I think also Project Runway All-Star. And we are sitting down with him and speaking to him about his career and what got him into fashion. Edmond, how are you?
I am well. How are you doing?
Good, very good. Do you want to give the audience just some background on how you got into fashion, a little bit about your bio and where you grew up and what made you turn to the world of fashion?
Oh, wow. Okay. So that would take up the entire time on the interview if we did that. So instead of going full throttle 100, we'll start and give a little bit of insight.
Hmm.
I actually discovered or was able to be introduced to fashion at a very young age. The more I look back at it, and I'd say like literally really young, at the age of maybe 7 or 8 or something to that nature. But it wasn't until a little later in life that I acquired all or a lot of the elements that I would need to go along and come along as far as I have on my journey. I mean, even from the creativity element of just, I think it was second grade, art class was the very first interest that was just something that was so special in my world and in my life, as far as young school days and throughout, elementary on up, middle school, junior high school, college, art has always been that go-to for me. And that was something that, stayed in my world. So leaving school, of course, by that time, I had a sense of direction that I wanted to definitely go into fashion. By that time, I had gotten my foot in the door via modeling,
Hmm.
and that was something that I needed to get the experience of, but that I knew that that wasn't somewhere that I wanted to be as far as in front of the camera. But again, throughout my journey, I've always wanted to utilize all experience and gather as much information behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, the business side, the creative side, all elements, manufacturing, production, anything that I can gather to obtain the ultimate vision that I had, which was launching my very own fashion design house,
Hmm.
you know. And where we are today, moving from that point after taking a huge step to come outside my world that I had created back in my hometown, where I had established a few different businesses. One of them being a master barber stylist. I had clientele and I was doing really well, but I knew that my fashion world needed to grow more. I had outgrown the area that I was in. So I wanted to ultimately take a step here in Atlanta. And doing that is where I opened up and created my very first design studio.
That's amazing.
And
And
that
I
was,
mean,
yeah.
it takes a lot of courage, personally speaking from my own experience to do that. Because I know, reading your bio, it says you're from the Carolinas, like you're originally from South Carolina.
Okay, so let me get that part clear because I've had a few interviews where I've been asked that, and
Uh-huh.
on one side, my mom was like, "You weren't born here. You was born in Ohio." Okay, so I was born in Ohio,
Right.
and then my upbringing, a large portion of my upbringing was in Carolina. Previous interviews, I've stated that I was from Carolina and didn't
Mhm.
mention Ohio, but again, I was born in Ohio, raised in
Mhm.
Carolina.
Okay.
So I have that country boy element from the Midwest and experience of travels throughout the city as well.
Okay, that's great. Both of my parents are from the Carolinas, but I was born and raised in New York, so I
Really?
definitely, yeah, North Carolina.
What
So I
part?
definitely
North
understand that.
Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I definitely
Okay.
understand that. Like, how does, like you said, like the country boy element help you with your fashion? Like, do you, bring any inspiration from like nature? Because the nature in the South is really beautiful. Do you bring any of that
Yes,
into your work?
I do. Oh, I bring so much of that into my work that is ridiculous because, you know, like I say, I grew up in the South. So that means from a youngster of elementary school age, the way I explain to people when I go different places is like, the neighborhood that I grew up in was pretty much our whole entire like a street. There was aunts, uncles, family members on opposite sides of a rural area road, and other people that were family members that people grew up with. So, but it was a small area. But beyond that was like trees and exploration and we had creeks and we had ponds and we had wildlife, like all this was around. So we had the freedom to just roam all day long. So we would
Mhm.
go out, my cousins and I and friends or whoever, throughout the day, and be in the woods all day long. So we're seeing things like squirrels and possums and snakes, and we're out there with our BB guns, and we've got bow and arrows and stuff like that, and following the creek, trying to find the cliff or the cave that's underground. I mean, it was just like this whole Huckleberry Finn type vibe of just exploration. So all of those things, nature-wise, I'm connected to, and
Mhm.
I am hugely and greatly inspired by, not only there but everywhere. So
Right.
starting my menswear collection, Noir Soul menswear, largely a part of the outdoor element, whether it's the country life, whether it's the wildlife, whether it's exotic life with furs and skins and leathers, or um, uh, pieces of animal prints incorporated, or large elements of animal prints incorporated. That's like a whole wildlife kingdom that I am inspired by, that I can take those prints that are normally associated with women's wear sometime and incorporate them to a menswear world in a masculine element, and still gives you that field of outdoors. So to answer your question, yes, I am so hugely inspired by the outdoors and the environment.
That's amazing, and I know that's key. I mean, do you feel that because I know most designers have like a muse. I know Yves Saint Laurent had a muse. I know Tom Ford has had several muses. Do you feel like, what is your muse, Edmond? Like, is there something that inspires you to design the way that you do? Is there someone that you design for when you have someone in mind when you design women's wear or men's wear?
Yes, I do. And it starts at the top. I think it's like, to be honest with you, like a pyramid type effect,
Hmm.
because there are different departments of my design house, But starting at the top, I would definitely say the menswear, and the balance to that menswear would be, I have my muses in my mind, but I'm also heavily inspired by like music icons of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now. But
Hmm.
ultimately, from a child growing up, it would be my mother, and the way that she dressed and styled, and the lifestyle and her world, for the feminine side. And on the masculine side, it would be my father. The sense of style and just how he was so unique in whatever he did, but it was just so natural to him. He was that dude that like every woman wanted to be with, and every dude wanted to be like, or idolize, or be best friends with. It's just all around cool dude. So I would say, starting at the top of the pyramid, it would definitely be that. Now, next in line, following suit to that special lady, it will be Whitney Houston.
Hmm.
And reason why is, like, when I first saw that woman on television, that was I fell in love, and that was my first celebrity crush, singing "You Give Good Love," and like she was singing that to me. You feel me? So, and seeing her and her beauty, the sound, the vocal element, just the class and the sophistication that she, exuded in that moment, I think that was something that I forever visualized in her, and I would incorporate that into a lot, if all of my, if not all of my collections, some portion of that, whether it be just the presence that is set, with her gracing the stage, or even with the interview, but also
Hmm.
having that flip side to where, okay, now I know you don't do it, because I can
Right.
flip
The
and go over
Newark, because
there
the
to you.
Newark comes out, that
Yeah,
Newark, New Jersey.
yes, that part, that
Yeah,
part.
absolutely.
So
I feel you.
so moving on down the pyramid chain, I mean, there were a lot, and are a lot, of people that have really, really influenced me, be it on the scene of music, be it on the scene of fashion. I'm inspired by a range of people. I mean, I greatly appreciate the 70s era, some of the 60s, most of the 70s, a little bit of the 80s, in the sense of Studio 54, all of those people and those unique individuals, from Jerry Hall to like Grace Jones, Diana Ross, like just hearing the stories of how these people partied and lived and knew each other, and there was just like this huge element of just creativity and unity to a degree too in that
Yeah.
time. So it's like all of those things, but to start, as far as the top of the pyramid, it would be definitely my mom and my father.
Definitely. I totally understand that. I mean, I get a lot of my fashion inspiration from my mother, and the way she dressed growing up, watching her get dressed. And, my parents would go out to like Broadway, and, seeing her get dressed up was such a, for me, a treat.
Yes,
I will
yes,
also say the 80s, I
yes,
agree with you, Edmund, on that. I mean, I know looking at your post, Halston is a favorite of yours as well as mine. Just the way
yes,
he designed the sensuality of it, using ultra suede, as well as him also putting Elsa Peretti for Tiffany's on the map. She designed for him first before she went to Tiffany's. So like I love
yes,
her creativity as well. So I agree with you. The 80s, for me, even when it comes to the art scene, you spoke about art as well. I mean, you have Basquiat, you have Keith Haring,
yes,
you have Julian
yes,
Chabanel. Like, there are so many great
yes.
80s, connections with art and fashion. So yeah, that decade definitely had a lot going on when it comes to creativity. So I agree with you 100% there.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Like talking about like when you say you start, so after you decide that, this is who I'm pulling from, whether it's my mom, whether it's Whitney Houston, whether it's from the 80s, when you're planning out a season, like how do you go about it? Because I know a lot of designers, historically speaking, go for certain periods, like you said, like the 80s. Do you go for Pantone colors, like the colors of the season? Do you look at trend forecasting? Like what are the things or the elements that you use to create your line, depending if it's spring, summer, or fall, winter?
I do not follow the trends nor the Pantone colors. Actually, I would probably, if I realized what they were going to be, stay away from it. That's just,
Mm,
to each their own. And I know there's a, said this is how you do it. But the one thing that I discovered a long time ago is that if I'm creating my world, I have to create my world and do what works for me in my world, in my house. And this is my house. So I don't have to follow the Pantone colors.
I agree.
I don't
I
have to
respect that.
follow the trends. I can, we don't, I don't, I can set a trend. I can create a trend, so my, the start of my inspiration a lot of the time comes from music. And when I say music, it's the feeling, it's the energy. And what I do is I'll listen to music and translate that or attempt to, transform that into fashion.
I love
So
that.
that's largely where the start or the beginning of the collection comes from.
Hmm.
Um, or it can be something because I'm inspired by literally everything. It could be something that just really hits me as far as if I'm outside and I'm riding, I see the architecture design of a building. I used to not really pay a whole lot of attention to the architectural design element of buildings until I think Merlene helped me to really stop and pay attention to that. See, I was looking at the sky and the animals and the birds and the trees and if it's snowing or if it's raining, but hearing her talk about that so much, it really made me look at the design structure. And being in Atlanta, we have a beautiful city,
Hmm.
as far as the buildings and the images and the way the light casts behind and just all that what has gone into designing those structures. And they're building now, they're building new. They're not, buildings that have been there forever. So, it's a lot of different things that go into it. But if I had to start with one, it definitely would be the music. And then, just the experience that I can inject into the collection to give that to the audience. I put a lot into, what I do, and it's a feeling that I want the people to have and embody, if only for just, those moments that the models are on the runway or that the show is taking place or whatever it may be. I want you to just clock out of the world for just a second and come into the world of its design and appreciate whatever it is that's being given from this piece, in this moment, because it's all good.
Oh, definitely. Okay, so you say music is you a part of your inspiration to create. What genres of music, do you listen to? Is it I know you mentioned like hip hop, is it also rock? Is it soul? Is it, jazz? Is it different, are you very eclectic when it comes to music, or is there only certain, music genres that you like more?
It's everything you just said and then some. I listen, rap, trap, country, rock, hip hop, old school, new school, classical. Like it's music is like the universal language. So I just feel it, and if I like it and enjoy it, that's what I gravitate to. It's not like say, well, just put this on because, it's a feeling that comes along with those sounds. I mean, it's something that I grew up, with and around constantly because my father was a musician. So
Wow.
we had instruments and stuff in the house, but we also had, as I'm sure you did too in your home, record players with lots and lots and lots and lots of records and albums and the amazing covers of all these people that you had never seen before, you had heard, but given the opportunity when you were old enough to reach up and look at an album cover and they show you this is this group or this person, this song that you've been listening to for this amount of time, these are the people who sing it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like,
Yeah.
listen, album covers. First, my father tries to get rid of his collection, and I'm like, Absolutely not,"
He's
because
like,
I'm taking that.
I want my daddy's records.
Yeah, like that's not happening. Like, don't sell that. But when you look back at those album covers, I don't know if this was a thing for you. Like looking at Al Green's album cover where he has like his shirt
Yes.
off and like the
In the
style for
out
me
in the
was like,
field.
right?
Yes,
So you know
yes.
what I mean?
That's what I'm
Like, so it
talking
was like
about.
the style and like how they position themselves. Like it just had so much creativity. Or you think about Sparkle, the one
Yes,
that Curtis Mayfield did, and he works
yes,
exclusively with Aretha Franklin. Aretha
yes.
Franklin's album covers where she has like the white and it's like this glowing turban on. Like this, so many great album cover looks. I can't even lie. So I get you on that totally.
Yes, yes.
um
I love the fact that you recognize that and have an appreciation and can just reference that quickly like that, because you are so right. There's so many greats that we can go on and on and on, from Teddy Pendergrass to Marvin Gaye to
yeah,
Diana Ross to even the groups SOS Band, hell, like
Funkadelic,
all
like
across the board. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, especially Marvin Gaye with the red hat when he rolled up on the come on, absolutely. And
Yo,
let's not forget
yo,
Barry White, like a whole mood.
yeah, that part. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. So I agree with you on that. I spoke earlier about you appearing on fashion shows, and you appeared on Fashion Star and Project Runway season 14. Has appearing on these shows helped give you a new perspective towards fashion? Like, has it changed the way you view the process differently since being on those shows?
Um, I would say so. And the reason why, it gave me like a boost of elements that go on in the world that I may have been introduced to on a certain level, and then also on another level.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it introduced me, or being, dealing with those companies, NBC Fashion Star, which is network television, and then Project Runway All Stars, which is cable, but they've had huge budgets behind, what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So prior to that, I had worked on and begin the process of building my own fashion company from my resources, friends, families, angel investors, all of those things, sweat, blood, tears, the whole nine, but going there were huge budgets and people of a profession with huge or lots of experience in that fashion world, working with with manufacturers, working with the high-end designers or whatever it may be. So we were able to, if you chose to, also acquire that information and that knowledge and experience in dealing with them. We were able to go to the fabric store and select exactly what we want, or we were able to just take the time to solely focus on nothing but the garment that needs to be produced in order to be showcased in the best light, on the best platform, with the best stage, with the best models, with the best stylists and the best makeup artists and hairdressers and all of these things. So rather than, as an independent designer, having to worry about all of those things, yourself, they were provided for you, and you just gave the sense of direction for your vision. So
Mm-hmm.
it really helped tremendously to just allow you to do nothing but focus. But it also gave me the experience of having my items mass produced and put into, stores, nationwide, and people go purchase it, off the rack. It gave me the opportunity to come into the homes of America on television and introduce them to my world of fashion and what it is that I do and or create and what I am building. and also just the association with those huge brands like that. It just gives you a platform to do whatever it is that you choose to do moving forward. And for that, I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, I definitely respect that. I mean, I'll have to tell you, Edmond, watching the season 14 Project Runway show, I'm gonna tell you that I had trauma flashbacks on episode 3 when you were working in the group project with Hamio Yang, and
Okay.
you right, you guys couldn't communicate. I cannot even tell you how much to be in group projects gives me anxiety when either like the other person doesn't do what they're supposed, and we've all been through that. The other person doesn't do
Yes.
what they're supposed to do, and you're like, oh my God, we're gonna fail. Like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like when
Hmm.
in those communications, it's so funny because you grow up thinking like, okay, I'm never going through this. Like when we all grow up, it's gonna be different. And it's not. You know, those same people grow up being difficult, and you get to like work and you have to do these projects. So I'll just say that they gave me severe anxiety watching like you trying to communicate with her, and you're like, okay, what we doing? Talk to me. What we doing?
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
that
And,
hard for you?
yeah, it was like at one point in time I had to kind of like question myself, like maybe it's, because I like to take myself out of it, and it's not about me. It's about finishing the project, doing what we need to do. And I'm like, well, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not phrasing things correctly, or maybe I'm not, compromising on what's going on. So let me just hand it to you, and then you tell me where we need to go. And it was just not working out. And I saw that it wasn't going in a good direction,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't give up. You still try to, make it the best that you can be, but you just vocalize what you feel strongly about and what you don't. And coming from a world of, I was laughing when you were talking earlier as far as like getting anxiety and dealing with groups and stuff or whatever. Because one of the things I was joking with someone with about the other day, I said, I don't work well with others. Well, in actuality, I do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a joke that you say is like a defense mechanism not to have to deal with people directly,
Right.
because I have as a, I have a team. I have a wonderful team who is like there, which is my X-Men, and beyond that, I have people that, at the drop of a dime when needed, also come aboard and support. But there's a main core number of 5 of us. And when we work, we come in and we hit and make everything happen, and then we go. We work as a team. It's like a hand. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you're folding your fist. That's how well we work together. Everybody makes executive decisions. There's no certain like labels or titles, or this is the assistant, or this is the model coach, or this is that. No, we come in. We all do what we do. We make it run efficiently, like a well-oiled engine, or piece of machinery that people love it, gravitate towards, and the product is there, and then we out. Like, we don't do all that other crazy stuff. Shout out to my team. But yeah, when in that moment I was like, what is really going on? So I said, just do what it is that you can to make the best of the situation, and you see the outcome.
Yeah. It's so true that you say that, and it's very I have to commend you, because it is your label. And a lot of times what happens with people, and I think this, I don't know her, I don't know if this is what she was struggling with from that episode, but a lot of times when you deal with ego, having control is part of the problem. For you to say that you have your, these brands are, Edmond Newton's designs are, of course, but you respect your team enough to make those decisions. When you have a support group like that, I mean, I can't tell you how important that is, if you're trying to venture off by yourself. So if anybody's trying to be an entrepreneur that listens to this, like, that support group is key. I can't even stress that enough.
Yes, I cannot either, because I have to say that, if it were not for my team, I don't think that I would have gotten as far as I have in this amount of time, without them. I mean, they're hardcore. They believe in the brand. They believe in the house, and we've done some amazing things, and we're looking to do some more amazing things, once this whole COVID situation is out of the way, or we find a way to live around it and get back to, traveling, doing shows, doing photo shoots, all of those good things.
No, that's definitely amazing. I will have to say, I mean, being on both those shows, like, do you think, like, what is the hardest thing that I mean, it could have been the group project thing, but what is one of the hardest thing that you had to learn about yourself? Because I mean, it's a key as a person, especially when you're trying to have a great spiritual growth. And, as I was saying before, controlling the ego is an issue with everybody. I mean, you have to be a little narcissistic to think that you're going to make it in the world. Everyone has a little bit of it, but you don't want it to be at this umpteenth power that you are alienating people. But what is like the hardest thing that you had to realize about yourself on these shows that you're like, okay, this I have to work on? You know what I mean? Like, is there anything that you realized?
Yes. And a lot of it, actually, I would say were things that I had to realize prior to going on the show.
Mm.
Not saying that I did not discover anything on the show that I need to work on, or, maybe a little different than the way that other people, may handle a situation or not. But what I can speak on is the fact of, that was a long process of getting to those shows. Those shows didn't fall into my lap just because I, moved to Atlanta. Those were things that I had to sacrifice and focus. Back then, trying to get on the shows, I was social distancing, quarantining before that was a thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so this whole thing now is not anything new to me. I was doing that then. It's just that phrase and terminology that people are using now for that. I didn't say that what it was. I was
Mm-hmm.
just focused on building my brand. Every dollar that I would make, would go to reinvesting into my house, purchasing fabrics, the materials and the items that are needed, dress forms and mannequins, teaching myself, because in the beginning I wasn't able to afford someone to do graphics for me, but yet and still you need something that was eye capturing, some type of visuals for advertisement purposes, whether it be online, whether it be a flyer, whether it be a business card, whatever it is. You have to make sure that you have something that gives some type of visual interpretation of your brand and who you are, because what I also realize is that people can prejudge the way something is if you just give them the verbal or one visual aspect of it in regards to that time of it being introduced to them. And I
Mm-hmm.
say that to say that, like, a lot of times people say, well, what are you doing next, or what are you working on? This, I can show you better than I can tell you, because the time it would take for me to try to tell you, you probably, and with all due respect, not saying you, but whomever, you're not going to get it, because
Mm-hmm.
it's still in the development process. So me trying to explain to you how it's going to be, it takes up so much time. Let me do it and just let me show it to you. That's
Right.
how it's going to work over here, and I feel that works best for me. Someone else, that might be a different story. But that whole quarantine social distance thing is something that I was doing then, because I had to focus to get to where I needed. So going full circle back to your question at hand in regards to some of the things that I needed to work, I know initially one of the things that held me back, I feel, from getting on the show was that I wasn't comfortable in front of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say comfortable in front of the camera, even during my modeling days, it was like, okay, picture, then go. I have done some photography work myself and capture other people, but I know what they feel being in front of that camera. So I give them a sense of direction and tell them what needs to be done. But when someone sticks a video camera in your face, and then you're doing something that is you're so passionate about, meaning the fashion design element, like, you have to understand, I've always had a studio or atelier, but it's limited to the people that I allow to actually see my process of me working, designing, creating, and how to do it, how I do it. There were people that have known me many, many moons, and they had not seen me work. They've seen what I've done, whether I start, or how passionate I am about it. I start with this fabric, and then you see it again, and it's completed. It's a gown, it's a suit, it's a for whatever, this, that, the third, or be it accessories, jewelry, whatever I design and create. But the actual process in between, that's kind of like, going back to the reference of music, letting someone into your sound studio. Like, there's only certain energies or people or vibes that you allow in that place, because that's a whole nother, time and space that you create in. And everyone, is not necessarily worthy of being there during that time. So opening up that world to a camera, and not only a camera, to the homes of America, where people are just watching what you do, how you do it, whether it be how excited you are about something, or, whether it be questioning something, or your creative process, or whatever it may be. I wasn't comfortable with that at first, but I had to learn to get comfortable, and I knew that in order to get on that show. And that's what took me so long, or one of the reasons that took me so long to get on there. I definitely don't think, and it may be, but I personally don't think that it was necessarily that they didn't recognize the talent or a talent. I think that, you know, being that it's a show, you have to be comfortable with being in front of a camera at that
Right.
time and allowing the world to see what you do and how you create it.
Yeah, that's big. I have to say, like, I have a this that talks to the ambivert in me. There's times that I want to be social, and there's times that I just do not want to be social. So I feel you. Like, I just, I'm very private to a certain degree, and even to the point that people think is like ridiculous. They think like I'm on like the most America's Most Wanted list or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But
They're like,
that's just,
you got bodies somewhere. I had
yeah.
somebody ask me, they was like, D, you got bodies somewhere, Maria. She was like, do you have bodies somewhere? And I'm like, no, I'm just right now, I'm focused. I can't be distracted. My energy, all of this stuff is distractions right now. And I just want to inject like really, really quickly about this whole conversation that we're having. And you and I spoke just, very briefly before we started the interview process. But this was something that I actually prepared for in my mind in regards to blocking out my time for this interview, because I was looking forward to it. Your energy of listening to prior interviews that you've done with people, like I say, I came across it on Instagram and I checked it out. I was like, okay, this is really dope. And that's when I sent you the message. So when you responded about, asking me to be a guest on the show, I was honored, you know what I'm saying? And in that, again, respecting what you do, the platform that you have, the way you do it, your professionalism, your energy and your excitement,
Aw.
listen, don't ever lose that. You,
Thank
baby,
you.
you listen, for real, you need that not only in what you're doing, but in life.
No, it's
So
true.
don't ever lose that. It's not a lot of people that you find that much energy out of, and when you do, it's like souls or whatever. So I was just like looking forward to speaking with you, although we had never vocally, talked. We've talked via text and emails and things of that nature. I kind of wanted to wait, and I hope that, maybe that was your same thought process on it. So when our energies met on the phone, it's genuine. Like the people would hear what it is, because I sensed that in the beginning. I was like, I'm looking forward to it, because there's so much going on in the world right now, that it's like, this is a good distraction for me to just converse with someone who has a great love for fashion and all of those things that surround it. Now,
No,
I'm sorry,
thank you,
continue.
Edmond.
I
I
just needed to
appreciate
say that on
that.
the air. Okay, all
I
right.
appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. Speaking of like everything that's going on, like I wanted your opinion, Edmond. Like, what do you think about the state of Black designers in the industry? I know I went to FIT's exhibit like a couple of years ago for Black fashion designers, and I know a lot of people were not happy with, them having to like kind of like corral all the Black fashion designers together at once instead of showcasing them individually as designers themselves. I know Cooper Union had an exhibit on Willie Smith, who unfortunately I was
Mm-hmm.
not able to go because the shutdown. I did buy the book though, so I still supported. And he was a big designer in the 80s. If anybody doesn't know
Yes.
him specifically, his sister is Tukey Smith. She used to be on like 227, if that helps, or she was married to Robert De Niro, if that helps. But I mean, I would look him up if I was you. If you happen to watch School Days, and as a fan of Spike Lee, he did a lot of the clothes for School Days in that film. So like, what do you think about Black fashion designers and how like now I think people they're getting the credit they deserve, and just like why it took so long? What do you think about that?
That's a good question. Both, the fact of, what I feel about it, but also why did it take so long? And that part of why it took so long, we can set on the back burner. If it's here now, let's appreciate it in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Let's, support it in this moment. Let's spotlight it in this moment. Let's showcase it in this moment. Let's wear it and support it in this moment. Like, you know, my take on it, a lot of the independent, and most of them, let's be real, most of them are independent, first generation fashion design houses where you pretty much going off of a sewing machine that you were given or what have you. No one was really passed down a legacy, or no one said, well, we're going to bring you in and allow you, to work under me. and be my apprentice and learn how to do French seam hems or stitching process or
Right.
creating shoulder pads from scratch or building structures for under, ball gowns and stuff. Like no one, for the most part, is there to, and then say, well, in addition to that, here's, $500,000 or $1 million in order to, start your company
Right.
on your own and do your thing and branch out and make it be successful. So the hard part is the financing in the very beginning for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's also, I think, showcasing what your vision is of your house. I know me personally, that goes back to what the question you asked earlier when you said, well, as far as Pantones as well as, trends, I don't do that because I enjoy my creative process in designing for that woman who is the Edmond Newton woman,
Mm-hmm.
or the noir soul menswear man. And that allows me that element and freedom of creativity to do what it is that I want to do. A lot
Right.
of people I feel don't have necessarily that, because if you come on, like say for instance, let's just say, you come on to Chanel. Chanel has its DNA of its brand of what it is. You can kind of sort of try to go outside the lines just a little bit, but there's only so much that you can do before you flip and change and create the entire house, and you may lose the whole or the company may feel, the investors, that you are trying to change the whole base, which is their foundation and their
The
structure and the people
heritage,
who
yeah.
support. And by the, yes, of that. So, with starting a new house, I personally feel that gives you the freedom and the range to fly and do whatever it is that you choose. And especially when it's something that you're not trying to build off of that someone else has already created. When I speak on the Edmond Newton house, it's my experiences. It's how I see the world. It's what I visualize this woman wearing then, now, or in the future. I
Mm-hmm.
have total creative control over doing that, and whatever I feel, what, this is the type of bag that she will be carrying in 2025.
Right.
Or this is the type of dress that she'll be wearing in 2021. Or this is the type of dress she wore then, and we're remixing it, recreating it, and this is a modern interpretation of what, my mother wore back in 85.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that, sometimes, let me give you a quick another scenario or a story. I remember when I first started getting into the business side of fashion, and that's beyond the creative element as far as, teaching myself to sew and design and create garments and things, there was a convention that was held twice a year out in Las Vegas called the Magic Show.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Um, Back in the 90s, and well, the late 90s, early 2000. I think the first year that I may have gone was like 2000. But that was when a lot of the hip hop rappers and, that whole culture were, consumed in the fashion element. And I think a lot of people were reaching out to them, or as well, they may have attempted to invest their own monies to create brands. So you had everything from the creme de la creme at that time was more of your Sean John. There was more of your Fat Farm,
Carl
your
Kanai.
Baby Fat, Carl
Yeah.
Kanai,
Mm-hmm.
Iniche, that whole nine or whatever. So with those, it was like they wanted to group in the convention center all of those people together. And I think that Sean John was the first one who really, as far as Puffy, he was one of the ones who kind of rebelled against that and wanted to be, put in another section, in the high-end luxury area of whatever, versus where everyone else was. But I say it takes more to branch out and try to stand out on your own, but just because you're doing that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not for the full cause of everyone coming along, because it just means you wanted to take a different route and way of doing it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you do it and you get there and you come back and you get the ones that may have gone a different route are still there, and you tell them, come on, this is the way, let me show you this way. Now those that will listen, cool. And then there's some that say, well, I just want to do it my way. Okay, well, cool. That, we kind of put it there. But I feel that where we are now is a a good place as designers or Black designers, simply because there's a acknowledgement and an appreciation for the talent. I mean, you have, like Oliver Rousting over Balmain. You've got all these different people in these
Virgil
different positions.
Abloh at LV.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. So you have all these people that are in these, higher positions where others can look up to them. But again, I feel the independent fashion houses that have, put so many years or more in prior to now, now is that time to shine. And there are so many people that I am aware of, that I am actually, associates and friends with, that are in the design industry, which normally you probably would think, well, I wouldn't think that, a lot of designers would know each other like that. I'm not saying anyone else, I'm just saying me, but I can count, it would take a minimum of both hands to say how many people that I know that are actual fashion design, Black fashion designers and fashion designers in general, beyond that, is that are, doing really well in what they do. Now, the finance element, I'm sure that fluctuates, but that's with anything. But I say that, they have invested in this world, and that's what I am so pleased with when I see. And that partially goes back to, when I recognized your podcast, I was like, okay, this young lady is really passionate about what she's doing, and I love the way that she's doing it with the professionalism and the whole nine. So yeah, the time is now to shine whatever way that you can, but also I hope that it remains. I hope this isn't a trend. I hope
I
this isn't a
agree.
trend just because we have, Black Lives Matter, or we have, the shutdown of the industries overseas, and people aren't able to get the fast fashion, which was taking a lot of people out. Like,
Yeah.
the fast fashion came through, it was taking independent fashion houses out, left and right, Black, white, whatever it because items were quickly being made, mass produced, cheaply, and sold at less cost than, items that are made to measure, or whatever it may be. So it kind of took money out of a lot of pockets of people that was their, business and industry. So hopefully where we are now with this whole element of, privately made in America, or starting a lot of that back over here, and the appreciation for Black designers, people can kind of really get into play and see new faces. It's like a changing of the guards in regards to, okay, I didn't know who this person was, but they're a super talent. Beyond everything else, I love what they're doing. Find someone that you like the culture or the energy that their house creates, and if it works for you, then support that. There are many different designers, and I'm kind of eclectic with my style all across the board. Me personally, I can do anything from a leather coat with a t-shirt and some ripped jeans and boots, to a tailored suit, and in between you might catch me with some plaid on and some overall. Like, it is what it is. So
Mm-hmm.
you have your Rick Owens, you have, it's not just necessarily the names that people automatically go to. Some people that may feel they have an appreciation for fashion go to the normal names, or the top names, and I think there's a huge spectrum of people that you can select from in addition to that.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you when you're saying that we hope that it stays now. And there's so many people, like you said, there is so many people for you to choose from. This is where, like, for me, social media is a gift and a curse. So social media is beautiful when it comes to discovering new people, because now everyone has access to a platform that, prior you had to get into Vogue or Harper's Bazaar or Marie Claire, that didn't really gear themselves to Black designers in any shape, form, or fashion. But then on the flip side of that, you have, like you also mentioned, fast fashion, which people tend to, instead of buying timeless and classic pieces, tend to buy fast fashion because every Instagram post is a new outfit. So they don't want to spend the money on, timeless or classic pieces. So they're consistently changing out their clothes, which is horrible on the environment. But I
Mhm.
do agree with you with that. And I definitely hope it's here to stay. Do you believe, Edmond, the commitment that the fashion industry promised Black designers and creatives this past summer? The commitment that Anna Wintour had said for Vogue, and how they are trying to diversify all the areas inside fashion which were not accessible to Black people, although most of it is geared from taking from Black culture. You know what I mean? Like, do you believe that this is something that's going to change? Do you believe it, or was just statements that you believe some people have made?
Okay, let's say this. I would like to believe that this is something that can change or is changing, and we're in the process, and it won't or will not revert back to what it was prior to. I feel that people being placed in different positions, of power, again, the changing of the guards into the world and also the fashion world. I think there are two, places in time that are changing at the same time. And we're now speaking versus on the political aspect, we're speaking on the fashion aspect. I feel that everything from as far back as I can remember has been heavily influenced by Black culture and style. It's just something that it's just the way that with the rawest of materials or of almost nothingness, we can take that and turn it into something that's desired.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to have an appreciation for that.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have an appreciation for the hands that crafted it, the mind that visualized it, the whole concept, and the blood, sweat, and tears was put into it for it to, come into existence and support it also, and maybe we need to, instead of pointing the finger somewhere else of how, this person or they or whomever, that magazine didn't do it properly, to change it and do it properly. Because at the end of the day, regardless of if you have a business is a business is a business. So with that business, the business has to what? Generate income, correct?
That's
You know what I'm
correct.
saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
you got this, accounts receivable.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, there are other magazine publications that are out there that I'm sure a lot of them, would need to be exposed and have that support. I can come off the dome with two right now. One Monarch magazine, the other Crave magazine, and just throwing that out there because the love that Crave magazine gave me back in 2005, I think it was, my very first interview insert in a magazine publication. Like, it was half a page, but baby, I still have that page. You know why? Because that was so monumental and so special to me to be showcased in a magazine of the caliber that this particular magazine was and has grown to be now, and for them to have an appreciation for my label, to feature me in there. That was like, very special to me. Later on, moving to, advertisements in there where I had the freedom to actually do full-fledged photo shoots and submit to the magazine publication and have full-page advertisement. So the support of those magazines are there too. I mean, celebrity covers, the whole nine. They've done it, and the listeners out there, please check them out. Go to cravemagazine.net as well as Monarch Magazine. Monarch Magazine is a magazine that's based, I want to say out of Washington D.C., but huge glossy page magazine that sits on the shelf and compares with some of the international magazines that are $30 and above. Advertisements in it, the whole nine. And it's like, these are people that are needing, subscription or whatever, online,
Right.
however, just, yeah,
Support.
like push and buy, support, yeah, these brands, and even the looks of the people that are on the pages of them. I think that largely, we're talking about the sense of style and how people, are so inspired by our culture and stuff. Let's sometime appreciate our culture and buy in that moment versus it necessarily having to go to the commercial aspect in order for us to appreciate it. That's largely why I so love the era of the 70s and over into the 80s, because it's like you either were opulence or you took what you had and made it, and you styled it and was so fashionable with it that people, they wanted that instead of what that particular look was giving over there that costs so much. So
Right.
it's an energy, it's a confidence that is exuded, and I think that that's something that comes from within our world, but it just needs to be appreciated by those throughout.
I agree. I mean, the one thing I realized, I mean, and to your point, the one thing I realize is I'm a big coffee table book fashion purchaser. And then
Me
I
too.
was,
Me
yeah,
too.
I'm going through the books and I'm looking at them and I'm like, I don't, there's no black designers. You know what I mean? Like, so I hope,
Yeah.
admit, I don't know if this is in your future, because I definitely would buy it. I don't know if you're looking to do a coffee table fashion book. I honestly think you should. You have some really beautiful pieces as I was going through some of your designs. I would appreciate books from more. Like I said, I bought the Willie Smith. Um, I know there's a few people working on different black fashion designers, but I feel like we need, Diddy should be making a Sean John book. Like that book should be next to Tom Ford. Like I would buy it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I shouldn't just have like I said, like Tom Ford or Anna Sui or Dolce Gabbana books or, Yves Saint Laurent. Like I should also have, other fashion designer books. And I've been trying to buy as much as I can, when it comes to any designer that of color that, produces a book, like I'm on Amazon or Barnes and Noble buying it, because those books should be among everybody else. So, I mean, I don't know if that's in your
Yes.
future, Edmond. If it is, I will definitely buy because I think
Okay.
that we
Well,
all need to be represented, more in those, situations because there's just not enough.
I agree. I totally agree. We definitely need that representation, and it done at a certain caliber, just all the way across the board. Whereas it's like, starting out, in my world of creating my fashion world, a fashion portal, you know, a lot of the photography I initially did myself. And that was just to capture an image. It was to get the experience of, what goes on in my world until I was able to work with some amazing, absolutely amazing photographers, which I still have relationships with that we will be building something in the future and working on stuff again. As soon as this whole COVID stuff is over, we're ready to get back to work. And
Mm-hmm.
just to give two of those names, one is Leslie Andrews
Mm-hmm.
and the other is Carlos Jones. And those individuals, their work is, I mean, I'm trying to think of a word that would, give it its proper due. Just, but I've worked with them since somewhat the beginning of my career here in Atlanta, and it has grown and developed. And I've seen their work, come into a place where they stand out amongst so many other people. There are a lot of other great photographers too, but those are two that I definitely could see myself collaborating with and creating that coffee table book that you're speaking on. And we'll let you get that first one autograph signed and all.
I'm saying, we definitely have to do that because I totally would buy it. Like I said, I definitely, I realized there was a gap. As I was buying these books, I was like, well, I don't have any. There's no black fashion representation. So I mean, if you do that, please let me know. We would love to have you back to talk about that as well.
Okay.
You spoke about the pandemic and doing we're into quarantine. Like, how have your plans have changed during this? Like, you guys are still working. You said as soon as it's over, you're going to get right back out there. I know you also had you did some, like I think In Vogue University, helping people who want to start out with a line do so. Are you doing any of these things virtually? Like are you still going ahead with some of your teaching or networking events virtually?
Well, it's funny you asked that because 2 weeks before COVID, I was on a bridge filming something.
Mm.
And a producer of a talk show came up to me and, was questioning what I was doing or whatever. And, I let him in on what I was doing because I actually was doing a film submission for something that was coming up. So make a long story short, he said, well, I'd like to interview you on my show or whatever. So I was like, cool. So I went and did the interview with him or whatever. And shortly thereafter, I was asked, well, do you mind, coming in and being a guest host for temporarily? So I was like, yeah, cool. It gives me something to do. And that was when we were transitioning over to finding out about this whole COVID thing. So being there gave me an outlet to creatively do what I needed to do, as well as grow with experience. Like I said, no matter what I do in life, anything that's going to assist with the growth of my fashion house, my brand, or anything, I'm game for it. So I came on as a temporary host, and that grew into a co-host. And now the producer of that show actually has opened a film studio. So now I have a whole like another world that I'm able to create from a digital element.
Oh.
And I've been mapping out all of the things that I, or my team and I plan to do. And the hold has been kind of like just being safe with everything because, like I said, normally the five of us get together, we knock it out and it's like done. So I'm working on something now. I won't give too much information on it, but I'm working on something that's really, really exciting. It's powerful. And it's going to be a good thing going in the direction of showcasing a lot of talented and creative individuals from a fashion perspective.
Oh, that's amazing. That is amazing. That's
So,
good to hear.
so hey, listen, God, that's God right there.
No, I agree with you
It's for
because it's like
real.
you can't. It's like I know my father would always talk about like you can't stop water. Water goes through everything. Like when you're determined, no matter what type of obstacles come in your way, you're gonna find a way around it.
I was gonna say, yeah, you find a way around it because even when COVID did come, or show its presence or what have you, I had to transition my business because people went from ordering custom gowns or, whether it be prom gowns or gowns for different, events and stuff that they were partaking because the world changed and it shifted. And I was like, okay, so what do you do now? And thank God I had, a checklist of things that I could select from. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just how my mind operates, like literally I had a list of things. Okay, well, throw a dart at it and figure out which one you want to do. So the one for me, which was most important in my mind at that time, was spring into action and create mask, and I instantly got on it, especially when I got word that a lot of the hospitals and healthcare workers and frontliners and other people didn't have masks, So I was like, okay, well, what do I do? Like spring into action, start creating them. So I created a prototype, mask. And one part of me was like, go full throttle with it, get it done. And the other part was like, okay, now you're actually tapping into a world that you think you're familiar with. Because in my head, I think I'm a doctor. Like anybody around me gets sick, I'm like that one that like nurse you back, like get you. I'm in the, I'm like boiling garlic and ginger and honey and lemon. I'm like, drink this, eat this, So in my
Right.
mind, I'm thinking I'm a doctor. But with these masks, it was something different. And I didn't want to take a risk of creating something that was not necessarily useful at that point in time. So the show that I just spoke to you about is called Old Fashioned Health.
Mm-hmm.
And we're on the radio on Thursdays and Fridays. On Thursdays, we speak with 3 doctors and they give us insight, COVID update, health, and all that stuff or whatever. And on Fridays, we do like old school music, joke and laugh, and some current, events or pop culture type stuff or whatever. So I got the nerve once I created, the prototype to take the mask into the studio, which was the last time that we actually had a guest there in the studio with us,
Mm-hmm.
which was Dr. Alexander. And I said, hey, man, I want you to take a look at something. And I said, I need you to be honest and tell me how you feel about it. So I gave him the prototype. He looked at it. He was like, I mean, this is good. This is nice. I was like, okay, I just wanted your approval on it. He was like, man, you get my approval on it. And he saw it, how it was made, and the construction, the quality, the whole nine. And from there, I started creating masks pro bono.
Mm.
My initial thought process is it wasn't even about $1, to be honest with you. It was just like, what can I do right now, like spring into action effect or whatever. So it was like just a basic mask is not going to work because um, I knew from a previous situation that a lot of people don't want to put something on their face and mask up or whatever, even in the job field. Like if you work somewhere and they're like, okay, you need to wear masks. Well, people, as much as they possibly can, they're trying to take it off. So I was like, okay, how do I create something that people are going to want, even though they may not necessarily want to wear one if it wasn't of this? How can I make them want to display, showcase, be safe, and put this on their face? So I started custom creating masks for individuals that I knew personally, and buying 100% cotton printed fabrics that would accent and go along with their life as far as who they are. So if it's someone who I know they love, gardening and stuff, I would do one out of flowers. If it was
Mhm.
somebody else I knew they were in the sports, I would do, some sports element. Somebody else is like fashion, or somebody else, So now I had, start purchasing all of these different mass materials and just making them and just sending them out and just giving them to people, family members, my aunts and stuff. I sent them masks because I knew it was going to be, hard to get them to adapt to this new way of life of putting this thing on your face. But how can I make them do it? Okay, I know her, she jazzy, she'll wear this if it's a leopard print, so I do a leopard print, for one of my aunts. And I'm like, the other one, okay, she's a little bit more, comical in her style and character, so I'll do something, very bold and colorful in hers. So I sent all those out. They loved and appreciate that I sent them to them. Initially, I know they weren't wearing them like I wanted them to, but when the people said, everybody put your mask on, it's time to do this, and they saw people wearing those little paper masks and filter masks and stuff. See, now they had a luxury item, which is a mask that their nephew or whomever, the fashion designer created, and it's like, that was like slipping on a fur coat right there.
Right.
It was a luxury item versus, there's a difference between clothing and fashion. You need a coat for the winter, but a luxury item is all the other elements that go along with it. It might, it's lined in something, it's trimmed in fur, or it's leather with, all these buttons and whatever it may be for the fashion element or whatever. And they had that, and that made them, appreciate that even more. So spinning, off on your question in regards to how did things change for me, I went to full production of creating masks. And that went from, okay, issuing them out or giving them out, and still for every mask that is sold, I still give many away. So in
Okay.
actuality, although I don't list it as a for nonprofit business, it's pretty much that, because it's just taking whatever revenue that comes in and just reinvesting that into new materials, creating new stuff, and putting it out there. And that company is called Enmask, ENMASKS.com, for those that are interested in tapping into the website, taking a look at it, and potentially ordering a mask.
I love that. I love that. It's very it's key for anyone who is a creative or a multi hyphenate to know when to pivot, to know when to see a challenge or obstacle and get around it. So I mean, Edmund, I commend you. Like that's big. You don't, because some people. I mean, it's been very hard, and I'm not looking down on anybody who's going through the quarantine. This is a very weird. 2020 was very weird, and it's still kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I'll never like discredit people who are struggling through this. So a lot of people are, but the people who are finding ways to cope and finding ways to still strive, I commend you as well. So Edmund, I think that's a wonderful thing that you're doing as part of your project. How can people, Edmund, if they want to reach out to you and to either have you create something? I know you had mentioned like special occasion dresses on one of your interviews, or wedding dresses. How can people reach out to you to get you to work, for them, or they can hire you? Would that be through your website? Would that be through social media? Like, how do you prefer people to reach out to you?
People can reach out to me different ways. You know, I guess email would be best versus, I think that would probably be better, because although it takes some time sometimes to get back, to, everyone, the social media thing, I really don't do a whole lot of social media. I mean, I literally have, thousands of pictures of experiences and travels, in and with fashion that I would love to upload and put out there. But to be honest with you, I'm so busy in, still living out all of that, that's hard to just sit down and do that, because it's time consuming. So rather than do that, I'm working on a book, and all, a lot of, if, not all of them, those pictures will be in the book. It's a memoir book that I'm
Wow.
currently working, and I have been working on for some time, and I wanted to give myself the deadline of 2020, you
Mhm.
know, But, being that, again, I'm still living in that moment and it's a work in progress, I have to respect its time that it needs in order for it versus rushing it out there and just putting it out there. So I definitely feel that when it's released, that those that, have heard a portion or witnessed a portion, experience, been there with me on this journey or whatever it may be, will definitely be very, excited about the book and its story, because it's a world that has been created, and the only way to really truly know what all took place is to hear it come from me. So
Right.
that's something that I'm working on. But as far as getting in contact with me, people can send me an email at style, style, at edmondnewton.com, and that's edmondnewton.com. That is also the website. Please reach out, send an email. All of my social media tags are at Edmond Newton, and that is spelled with the O, Edmond, Newton. And yeah, just reach out and let me know what you're working on. We are in a time where we aren't actually dealing directly with clients, but if it's something that we can create and make and send through the mail or do some type of virtual consultation and get it to you, then great. But we'll also be launching a store soon where you can just buy some of the ready-to-wear items that have been designed in-house and just purchase it online so that you can live in that world and that lifestyle that we created, that brand Edmond Newton.
I love that. I mean, do you think, Edmund, when and everything is back to hopefully back to normal as the vaccines roll out, do you think you would do a pop-up shop in different cities? Like if you would come back to New York to do a pop-up shop here, would you see anything like that in your future with your fans that you've made in New York City when you were on Project Runway?
Yes, definitely. I am so ready to get back out there in the world and feel that energy. To me, whether it be a pop-up shop or a fashion show or whatever it may be, if you kind of translate it into like being a musical artist, that's like concert, world tour type vibe,
Right.
and when you're there around the people, you feel that energy and that frequency of that love. And I so appreciate and shout out to all my Ed lovers out there that have supported, in whatever shape, form, and or fashion that they have over the years, through the years, and to the years, because without you and that love and support and energy, that's what keeps me motivated to, do the things that I do and the appreciation for what has been created. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to getting back out there. My team and I, we've been able to travel a lot of places, and we're looking to travel many more, throughout the world. Fashion has allotted me just amazing travels. I mean, Bermuda, Bahamas, Mexico, New York, LA, like spending time there, like through whatever it may be, and meeting, amazing people of other cultures in fashion and not in fashion. It's a beautiful thing, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to that. And yeah, getting back in the eyes of people and putting garments in their to where they can access them and buy and purchase and live in them and feel that energy.
Yeah, I definitely love that. And I look forward to what's next for you. I mean, I'm looking forward to this book. I am hoping that I pushed along the idea of you doing a coffee table book. I mean, not like you
Yes,
might be
yes,
thinking
yes.
that, but I hope you are because I would love to add that.
Okay.
It has been a pleasure talking to you, Edmund. Just really, you have a
Likewise.
great energy as well, great spirit. And I just look forward to everything else that you bring to fashion. And like I said, once this memoir is out, I definitely would like to have you back.
Yes. Yeah, you got to listen, you've got to push it when I release it. I know you will, but
You know I
I'm
will.
just stating this, push it and just get it out there, because it's not a vanity project, because if it was, it would be done. This
Right.
is something that have lived, and I foresee myself living, and I'm putting it into stories. So this is my testimony. And normally, in the past, it was not necessarily something that I'd speak on, but one of my friends, probably maybe 10, 12 years ago now, I said, dude, you got to speak on that. This is your testimony. These are the blessings that God has put in your world to be able to showcase that light and let them know with what's going on. There's so many other things that if you incorporate, him and or her, into your world that, you know, can come into fruition. So you got to speak on it. And, you know, since then I've been really like jotting down and journaling a lot of things, even now, because the first book is pretty much done. There's just a few images that I need, because being visual, I know when I was younger, books were cool, but it definitely had to be something that I'm interested in. So
Mhm.
what would interest me, if it wasn't so much as this like interesting at that time, were the visuals. So, you know, back in the day, there were some books in school, there really weren't a whole lot of pictures, but whenever we got to a picture, it was like, okay, I could come up with so many different scenarios, or my imagination would just run wild with that imagery that goes along with the story versus just reading the story.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So
Totally. I agree
they're
with
the
you.
they're the receipts. You know how they say, show me the receipts. These are
Right.
the receipts right here.
I love that. I love that, Edmund. And I just want to say thank you so much for reaching out that time, and then me inviting you to be on the show and you graciously saying yes. I, really
Thank you
do
for having
appreciate
me.
you coming on Fashion Decipher, and we look forward to everything that you do going forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sean.
You're
Keep doing
welcome.
what you're doing. All right.
I definitely will. Thank you.
All right. Goodbye.
Hi guys, it's Sean. Make sure you visit our website, fashiondecipher.com, to get a visual on what we're talking to you about. Check out pics from events, of guest speakers, and exhibits. If you miss anything we post, you can visit our archives page. Also, while you're there, hit that subscribe button, leave your email, and if you like, a comment. Tell us what you think or what you would want to hear on an upcoming episode. Don't forget to follow and friend Fashion Decipher on social media. Check out what we're up to. Speak with you next week.